The year was 1889. There was a man wandering the streets of Turin in the country of Italy. Unfortunately, something very tragic happened to this man. He had a complete mental breakdown, and he spent the rest of his life in an insane asylum, where he died there at the age of 55 years old. Now, this was no ordinary man. This was Friedrich Nietzsche, author and philosopher. The reason I share this story with you is to show you that mental illness has plagued humanity throughout history, from ancient civilization even to the modern day. In fact, there's still millions of people all over the world who are impacted by this disease. Sadly, there's still a lot of stigma that surrounds mental illness, and this leads to a lot of negative consequences. I believe this is wrong. We should be doing everything in our power to remove the stigma that is associated with mental illness by educating ourselves and other people. Now, this is something that's very near and dear to my heart because I work in the mental health field at Behavioral Health Services here in my local town. I live in El Centro, California, and my name is Gustavo Roman, and I feel very privileged to be able to work at an agency that helps clients who have mental illness better themselves, relieve their symptoms, and essentially just help them live a better quality of life. I would like to discuss some of the ramifications of the stigma, as well as the cause and the solution to this problem, because I do believe that there's hope. Now, what is stigma? According to the Mayo Clinic, and they're a nonprofit organization, and they do a lot of good research in this area, they state that stigma is when people have a set of negative beliefs towards the mentally ill that can essentially lead to discrimination. Now, this is a major problem that needs to be addressed. According to the Mental Health Foundation and their advocacy group, they do a lot of campaigning against stigma. They state that there's several problems. For example, one of the problems is employment, that employers don't want to give a job to the mentally ill because they believe they're more of a liability. Number two is relationships. People don't want to engage in long-term relationships with the mentally ill because they're afraid. Number three is housing, that a lot of landlords do not want to even give decent housing to the mentally ill because of their status. Now, I would like to show you a picture that I think encapsulates this form of stigma. And unfortunately, sometimes it's the most vulnerable people that are affected. So in this photo, there's a little boy, and up top it says, "I'm dealing with depression. Stupid names don't help." And his mouth has been removed, and it has the word nutter. Sadly, this is true to life. People with mental illness are called a lot of terrible names, such as nut job, crazy, lunatic, and this is very damaging. Now, according to the National Institute on Mental Health, they're one of the biggest research organizations in the world. They do a lot of good work. They say that 1 in every 4 Americans have mental illness. Now, that goes to show you that it's something that's common. It's not rare. I would also like to show you some other statistics. Here, it has stigma by the numbers. So 38% wouldn't want somebody with mental illness moving next door, 56% wouldn't want to spend an evening with them, 33% wouldn't want to make friends with them, 58% wouldn't want to work closely with them, and 68% wouldn't want to marry into the family. Here, it shows the biggest demographic with mental illness, and it's the young adults, 18 to 25, 29.9%. And in this graph, it shows you that of all the people with mental illness, 53.7% do not receive treatment, absolutely no treatment, which means that many times they have internalized the stigma and they're ashamed and they're scared of receiving treatment because they might be discriminated against. Having mental illness, having that level of stigma, it's like having a big scarlet letter on your back that is a symbol of shame and disgrace, just like in the novel by Nathaniel Hawthorne. And mental illness affects a lot of different types of people, regardless of religion, race, socioeconomic background. Everybody knows someone with mental illness, whether it's a family member, significant other, friend, coworker, or even a famous person. There's a lot of famous people who have mental illness, and I would like to show you some. Here you have Abraham Lincoln. He was a president, 16th president of the United States. He had severe depression. Winston Churchill also had depression. He called it the Black Dog. Virginia Woolf was an author, and she had bipolar disorder. Unfortunately, she took her own life. Beethoven was a composer. He also dealt with bipolar disorder. Van Gogh dealt with bipolar disorder. Unfortunately, he also took his own life. And Charles Dickens, the famous author, dealt with severe depression for a big part of his life. Now, what's the cause? According to Psychology Today, they're a magazine that deal with mental health topics. A lot of professionals are on there. They state that, like one of the causes is that people think that the mentally ill are more violent and homicidal, and that's just not the case. They are no more violent than the average population. Another is, and this goes back way into history, is that some people still believe that they are possessed by the devil, that they have demonic forces inside of them, and unfortunately, this is just a myth. There are still some people that believe that. Now, what is a solution? According to the National Institute on Mental Illness, they say that there are several. For example, number one, you should start adopting more respectful language. Things that are not going to be offensive to mentally ill people. Number two is to just educate yourself some more, immerse yourself with information that is helpful and that is going to make you more well informed. And number three is to become an advocate. You have a voice, so you should be able to use it. Whenever you hear someone talking bad about mentally ill people, you should speak up and say something. I have an aunt who has mental illness, and when she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, she went out and she received help. Now she's doing a lot better. She's got her own apartment, and she's leading a satisfying life. But if she would have been affected by the stigma, she would never receive the services. Unfortunately, there's also some people that don't even believe in mental illness, such as the author Thomas Zantz. He wrote a book called The Myth of Mental Illness, where he believes there's no such thing as mental illness, and therefore there's no stigma. Unfortunately, this is wrong-headed. There's a lot of people who have come out with the fact that they have mental illness and that they have gotten better. So I think this is just wrong. In closing, I want to say what the famous Henry David Thoreau said when he said, "It is never too late to give up your prejudices." No matter what you thought before, it's important to note that stigma is wrong, that mentally ill people are just like you and me. It's no different than people have asthma and diabetes. We don't treat them any differently. We shouldn't treat people that have mental illness differently. They should have the same rights as us, and together we can help overcome the stigma.